You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey there, you're listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. I have an amazing guest on today. Today I interviewed Dr. Crystal Collier. She is a person in long-term recovery, therapist, educator, and author of the NeuroWhereAbouts guide. She also has a children's book series called Know Your Neuro, which is a super cute, superhero themed about adventures of a growing brain. She's really passionate about helping students understand their brains and talking about how we can prevent risky behaviors. She was such a joy to interview and is so smart, but she makes it so applicable and easy to understand. Not only was she the Counselor of the Year from the Houston Counseling Association, but the Know Your Neuro prevention model was selected for the Prevention and Education Commendation from the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. So she is highly acclaimed. You really want to learn from her. It was an amazing interview. And like I said, she just makes all of this easy to understand and accessible. She shares some stories that are honestly shocking and sad. I was jaw-dropping the whole time we had our conversation. But the good news is that our brains can change and they are elastic and we can continue to change things and change those things in our students. So it ended up on a hopeful note, but it is crazy, guys. This is some really important stuff and I'm so glad I did this interview. So I hope you'll love it. Let's dive in. Let's play a little game of Would You Rather, School Counselor Edition. Okay, would you rather spend your weekend planning a group or spend your afternoon sitting in irrelevant PD? Yikes. Or would you rather be the only counselor with no one to collaborate with, or to spend hours searching online for engaging activities? All of these options are pretty bad, right? But unfortunately, they're all too real. But what if I told you I had a solution for you? What if I told you I had access to hundreds of school counseling lessons, groups, and activities? Counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most, and a community of like-minded school counselors to support you. You would say, yes, please. Well, that is what Impact is all about. Impact is my monthly membership for school counselors, and it helps you with all of these things. You get access to hundreds of resources. That's unlimited free downloads. Log in and get what you need right away to every single resource that's in my store. We add new resources each and every month. We're adding a new middle school and elementary resource each month, and some of these are bonus Impact exclusives, meaning that you can get resources just for members. You can request resources that you need and easily search so you can find exactly what you're looking for. And let's talk about the trainings, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most. We do these each and every month as part of our Coffee with the Counselor series. Impact members get to join for absolutely free. You earn PD certificates and you get exclusive access to members-only things like the Ultimate Small Group Experience and our Summer Summit Conference. And the community. Y'all, this is possibly my favorite part of Impact. I so look forward to jumping on these calls, to getting to know counselors who are similar to me and also completely different. It's so fun to hear from your experiences and your challenges, and everyone brings a unique perspective to the table. We have an exclusive online community, and we even have a cool app where you can chat with other counselors in these community circles. We have our monthly calls, like I mentioned, twice a month, and we share wins, troubleshoot tough cases, and just talk about what it's like to be a counselor, because so often we're on our own island at our school sites. So if any of that sounds like it's for you, I would love to see you inside Impact. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to solve all of your counselor problems. And I have a special offer for my listeners. Use code POD at checkout to save 10% off your first month. Okay, let's go to today's episode. Hi, Crystal. How are you?
I am very good. Thank you, Rachel, for having me. I'm honored.
Good. I'm so excited that you're here. I can't wait to just share what you have to say with our listeners. I think it's something they're going to find relatable and super interesting. But before we dive into all the details, tell us a little bit about who you are and your background in education.
Sure. I am a therapist. I have a master's in clinical psychology and a PhD in counselor education. So I train therapists how to be therapists and how to work with kids. I wrote a book called the NeuroWhereAbouts guide, wherein I researched 18 different high-risk behaviors and I put them in order of occurrence. I graphed them all so parents would know, okay, when does this spike? And then when it does, I've got a checklist and a script so that you can have an easy conversation with your kiddo to prevent high risk behavior as they grow and develop. And I've also got a children's book series called Know Your Neuro, Adventures of a Growing Brain, that teaches kids how to fall in love with their brain so they want to protect it and grow their skills.
Oh, I love that. I didn't know about the children's book series. I knew about the NeuroWhereabouts guide, but I feel like I didn't know anything about the brain until college, until I was, majoring in psychology. Like as far as anatomy wise, like, words like amygdala, I think I heard that when I was like 21. So I love teaching that to kids, and it's so empowering for them to figure out like what's going on in their head.
Definitely. Yes, the in the children's book series, I've got two levels, K through 2, and then there's one for grades 3 through 5. And you follow the adventures of Neuro, who is the superhero, your brain. And you get to learn about it, and then you get to go on adventures. So Neuro says no, Neuro learns self-control, Neuro feels feelings, all the skills that you want kids to have as they're growing and developing before middle school.
That's awesome. I love that. And I want to ask, so in your book, you said the Neuro Whereabouts guide, you said that you kind of ranked things based on where parents should kind of focus based on the age of their child. So most of my listeners are elementary school counselors. So what do you think are the risky behaviors we need to look out for and try to prevent at the elementary level?
Sure. So at elementary, what we want to start working on is feelings. So, how to feel your feelings, because about 50% of anxiety disorders are diagnosed by the age of 6. We have more and more kids who are experiencing anxiety. So anxiety is a big risky behavior because if we learn avoidant coping or we get lost in our screens, unfortunately, then we're not going to learn how to handle and harness the power of anxiety. So another big one that pops up in elementary school is bullying. We see that bullying actually peaks in the 7th grade, but it starts in first and second grade when our kids are such concrete thinkers. We just see differences and we make fun of them. And so that gone unchecked is unfortunately what continues to grow as we grow and develop up to the age of 7. And then we start growing empathy skills. So what I always like to teach parents is the brain's rule, use it or lose it. You can actually teach kids skills earlier than when they're targeted to peak development, and they'll peak sooner. Like, for instance, empathy. Empathy actually is abstract reasoning is required for us to really have empathy, but it's one of the skills that helps us not bully others. And so you can teach empathy much earlier today and stave off bullying. But we also want to teach upstanding skills and give kids options in different ways to intervene with those types of things. Now, what we also see, unfortunately, in elementary school is kids see alcohol, drugs, nicotine, vaping. They see that. And it makes them pretty curious, especially if their family is using any of it. And so by the time kids get to 5th grade, we actually see a small percentage, anywhere from 0.5 to 3% of elementary school students have already tried those things.
Oh,
So
wow.
we want to make sure that we let kids understand. That's why in my book, the age level grade 3 through 5, we start to introduce 7 different high risk behavior that kids are introduced to by their culture. And then the other one that I think it's critical for parents to understand is how screens affect kids that young. And we see that a lot of times by the age of 7 or 8, kids have already been introduced to pornography. We call them bad pictures, right? Online or via somebody else's cell phone. So we've got to have that conversation about bad pictures younger than we think we're supposed to.
Oh gosh. As a parent, I'm like, oh gosh, this is all so scary. I didn't know.
It's so scary.
But I mean, we can do something about it, which is what we're going to talk about here. But the stats, yeah, that stat about the anxiety by age 6, I did not realize. Could you share that again, that most are diagnosed by age 6, or what
So,
did you?
well, 50% of anxiety disorders are diagnosed by the age of 6.
Wow. Yeah, my son's
And
about 5. I'm like, that's so crazy.
isn't it, but a lot of it is linked to what's happening in our culture with screens and technology and the lack of free play. Kids
Hmm.
learn so much just by playing with each other, right? They social skills, sharing, how not to be controlling or how to cope with controlling kid, all of the things that can create that. So if we don't go out and experience those things, we have what I call experience deficits. Oh, there's my assistant right here. The experience deficits result in higher anxiety. Like, if you go out and you experience life, you're anxious. Everybody is anxious. It means we care. Anxiety is a healthy, good feeling, but it's not fun to feel. But when you go out and you experience it, you learn how to cope with it. And then the next time, you don't have as much anxiety. But when kids don't do that, because they're not allowed to free play or they're on a screen all day long, those experience deficits result in avoidant isolative behaviors, which only increase anxiety.
Right, it's a cycle. Yeah, I'm really passionate about the free play. I just try to do that with my own kids. And then I know from reading in our Impact, my membership for counselors, we had a book club last year on anxious generation. That book, got a lot of buzz. And I loved learning all about it. And it's just like, it's frustrating because I feel like parents are always so well intended, right? Like they're signing up their kid for the extracurriculars, like a lot of structured things. Everyone's trying to do their best and support the kids and help them like be prepped academically, but then it's taking away from so much of that like unstructured free play, which is where they can learn all of the skills. So as a school counselor, where I'm like, yes, let's go into a classroom and teach social skills, like we should do that, but it also can just be paired with those real life experiences where we should let them go on the playground and learn social skills. And then we can like plug ourselves into those situations as well.
Absolutely. Then they get to make their own choices. When play is always supervised or scripted, adults unfortunately have a knack of getting involved in ways that are more directive, which then creates kids who want to be told what to do or how to solve problems. Whereas free play, you learn it on the fly.
Right. Absolutely. So I want to talk more about how counselors can prevent the risky behavior, specifically with technology and video games at the elementary level, because I feel like a lot of my counselors are seeing that, technology addiction and everything. And you even mentioned like exposure to pornography at a very young age. So
Yes.
how can we help prevent that?
Well, first, let me talk about what I have gleaned and learned from my travels presenting at schools. I've met so many amazing school counselors who share with me anecdotally what they're experiencing, and kids who feel so checked out or they're dopamine saturated, and it's very difficult for teachers to compete with that. Kids who don't have a lot of emotion regulation because they haven't had to learn that. And so, also attention spans and things like that. I am on the advisory board here in Houston, where I live, for an organization called smartfamilies.org. And I hope your school counselors will check this out because we travel all over the country to schools. We do presentations in the school with kids as well as presentations for parents. And I am one of their speakers. And so I do a presentation called Technology in the Brain, and I talk about 8 different areas of how technology is affecting us. We're talking about not only our sleep and our physical activity, which were the first things we started to notice when we became so glued to our screens. But now, of course, we see how it's affecting our attention, our working memory, our ability to learn. In high school, there was a study that showed when kids get distracted in class, they lose on average 9 minutes of the learning they just learned.
Oh, wow.
So, but what we also see is besides the memory, the learning, the distraction is how it's priming our brain for other high risk behavior, gaming addiction, technology overuse, pornography exposure, and then all the things that go down that rabbit hole. And so, like Jonathan Haidt talked about in the anxious generation, and he has a great Substack too. I highly recommend that you connect your school counselors to that because he is on a few different organizations that work toward reversing a lot of the laws that don't protect our kids online, and a big advocate of just let them grow with free play, with free range parenting, which is not permissive parenting. It's really authoritative parenting. So for a school counselor, I think there's a few things that number one is advocate for phone free schools. And this is on all levels. The research is showing there's a causal level, a causation to anxiety and depression in our kids today, but there's also causation to memory and learning problems. We have enough data now that we can reverse our policies. And everywhere that I've been traveling over the past 3 years with smart families, I'm hearing heads of schools, superintendents, principals all say they are slowly reversing their technology policies to move toward a screen-free school. Another thing is also no watches. The
Mhm.
watch is one of the worst things that you can give a kid because it's so distracting since it's on the body. And what we want is kids to practice paying attention. So I think when you study neuroscience, you understand that attention has practice effects. So you actually will grow networks of neurons in your brain for paying attention to slow moving stimuli if you engage in paying attention to slow moving stimuli. But as soon as that attention is broken by a vibration on the wrist, what you've actually done is shortened the neuronal networks in the brain. So now you're growing neuronal networks for paying attention to fast moving, quick vibrating stimuli. So, and our teachers are seeing the effect of that in class. Another thing for the littles, I've been seeing and hearing teachers and school counselors talking about how the preschoolers are having difficulty with balance because from birth to age 3, they're sitting with a screen more often than they're walking around and walking. So think about the brain's rule there, use it or lose it. I was
Right.
appalled at this. I heard a story from a principal of an elementary or preschool, and she said that, they do that little test where you bring your kid in and you sit, and if you can raise your hand, if you
Mm.
can sit still, if you can get in a line, your basics.
Yeah.
She said she watched, half the kids stand up and fall over, literally fall over.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then you give them a book and they swipe it with their finger or they try to maximize the screen. 4 years old because they haven't actually touched a book. They've, right? So, okay, what's going on? I think these are parents who just don't know.
I would hope so. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's an education piece, hopefully. And it sounds like the organization you're working for is doing the parent education piece, which is great.
Yeah.
I know a lot of my counselors do too. Oh gosh, that's crazy about the preschool. But I love that you're explaining a little bit about the neurodevelopment in the brain and how it's literally like creating more of what you give it, right? So if you're exposing it to that, slow moving stimuli that you said, then your brain is literally changing as a result of what it's being exposed to. But
Yes.
the good news is that we can change it, right? So
So we
it's
can change it.
yeah.
Yes.
So if it has, if it's this like short attention span, um, there are ways to reverse it. Is that right?
Very much so. So if you think about, right, neurodevelopment, think about dendrites. I always tell my parents, say dendrites 3 times fast. Dendrites, dendrites, dendrites. I want that to be silly so you remember it because it should be our battle cry as a parent. We want our kids to grow more dendrites, which are the connections in between neurons. the more connections we have for a skill, the better that skill is. But always remember the brain's rule, use it or lose it. So, a lot of times, like I was working with a family last night who the mom said, yes, I'm a helicopter parent. And she was very proud of that. But now she has a 17-year-old who is extremely dependent upon her, won't make decisions independently. And so she's realizing that she overfunctioned, and now she has a kid who underfunctions. And instead of having critical thinking skills, he has the skills for asking other people to help him, which is good, right? But he is really paralyzed in many situations. So to remember that neurobiology is flexible and adaptable, but the other key component is that plasticity, which is literally the flexibility and adaptability of our brain neurons growing, peaks at 25. And then it's slowly downhill from there. So what we want to do is harness the peak plasticity. So there's really two great periods of development in the brain: birth to puberty, when we grow 200 billion neurons. It's almost like we get a chunk of clay in the brain that we have to sculpt. And then from puberty to 25, we lose half of those neurons. We prune them away, but we use the space to grow dendrites. So what we end up with is a really well-connected brain for everything we used between puberty and 25. Okay, well, what if they didn't use independent problem solving and decision making, but they used more dependency on others to do that for them? That's the wiring they're going to have in the brain. So you want to really, in my book, the NeuroWhereAbouts Guide, I talk about how we want to switch from being a direct parenting, the director, to the coach. We want to start coaching. We want to change every direction into a question, into a three-part choice for kids when they get to that age, so that we can reinforce them using those higher level executive functioning skills.
Yes. No, I see that as well. I know many like family friends and things who are high school students who don't want to get their driver's license, things like that. And I remember being 16 and like the day I turned 16, like being at the DMV, like couldn't wait, for independence and everything. But it's a lot of anxiety paired with this. Yeah. Parents, again, well-intended, have been helping but maybe overstepping where they're not, letting the child get a chance to practice things on their own.
I love that you brought up driving, because it's such a critical issue. One of the things that parent was talking to me about last night is that her child has no desire to get his driver's license at 17. And it baffles us, because I could not wait to have my driver's license and get the heck out of Dodge, right? And go do things. But kids have everything at their fingertips. There's no reason to go do that. There's no motivation. So she asked me, how can I get my kid motivated to drive? And so it's such an interesting question, because what motivates us? We get motivated by not having things we want. Right? So in order to motivate him to drive, she's going to have to reward him with his games, his technology, which is the only thing he wants. And left to his own devices would be the only thing he did. I had oh, Rachel, this is very sad to me, but last August, I had a new client who's about 19. And he said to me, when I was doing his assessment and asked him about, have you had sex yet? And what are your relationships like? And he was like, oh, sex, gross. I have Pornhub and DoorDash. I never need to leave my room.
Oh my gosh. Because when you said what motivates you, I'm like, well, I know what motivated me at 16 was going to meet up with my boyfriend. I wanted my car to go see him. But I know that's very different now as well. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So
this boy is not interested. He's not interested. He doesn't have a girlfriend, right? The only thing he wants to do is game.
Yeah.
And so he has the ability to go do all these other things, but intrinsically he is not motivated by all those other things, because he's always had them. And sadly, what I see in their 20s, once those kids hit the job market, they're really struggling. because they're not out of the box thinkers. They're not intrinsically motivated. They're followers. They need lots of direction, hand holding. And I'm hearing from the corporate world that they don't know how to train these younger employees.
Right. So I want to go back to what you were saying about the screen-free schools. It sounded like some people in leadership are leaning toward that, which is great. Have you actually been to a school that's fully screen-free now, or is everyone still kind of like in the works?
Oh, definitely. And you can see some documentaries too out there in the world of some schools. But here is the sad thing. Most of them are private. Most of them
Mm,
are private schools. As you know, it takes sometimes an act of Congress to get a public school policy to change. And if you have, a small group of loud or noisy parents, you may get lots of resistance. Whereas, public or private schools, they have maybe more autonomy or maybe more active parent groups or smaller schools that they can assess parent opinion easier. And so I don't want to say anything bad about public because this is the backbone of our society is public school education, but it's also so big and unwieldy that sometimes it's very difficult to change policy. So, but I'm seeing, so like I said, I'm from Houston and we've got a lot of schools here that are going absolutely screen free, but they're doing interesting rollouts. So, they will first let parents know, okay, we're going to restrict access. It has to be in the book bag, or we're going to put it on these shoe racks at the door. But next year, we're going to go to the pouches. And so every kid is assigned a pouch that's magnetized and it stays in that all day long. And then the following year, it will be no phones at all. And so I love that slow rollout to get parents used to, okay, how do I reach my kid? Well, you call the nurse and the nurse goes and gets them and they're safe, right? We have to go back to kind of old school policies and ways.
right. So interesting. So you've shared some stories that are definitely, yeah, some sad ones, but like we said, there's always like some, hope to do something better here. And that's the work you're doing, which is so exciting. What are like some takeaways? If you had to give like one or two things to tell counselors what they could do to help their students so we can prevent some of those issues from happening when they're, in their upper teens.
Oh, definitely. Well, so this is sometimes aspirational, but prevention works if it's done consistently over a child's brain development. So I created a free prevention program called knowyourneuro.org. It has videos from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade on a lot of different high-risk behavior and executive functioning skills. So I've got about 65 school districts across the United States that are using it periodically throughout the year in health classes. So sometimes they'll do a topic, sometimes they do a skill, they'll switch it out. But the school counselors are also using it as clinical tools. So they're really short videos with a one-page activity handout and quiz. So it's a good thing to a tool to use when you're counseling kids about high-risk behavior, or you want to teach them an executive functioning skill and do executive functioning coaching. They're
Mhm.
all neuroscience based. So I find cool studies to put in those videos, and kids are mesmerized by how their brain works. So doing the prevention programming consistently is critical. I have a family page too that has a lot of different activities that can be used for free. So I do a workshop called the Family Code Workshop, and I'd love to see school counselors doing that either in the beginning of the year for opening night or as a family event to bring families in and build community. And it helps teach them the neuroscience of risky behavior and create a family code. So the other thing I'd love school counselors to teach parents is to challenge them to have 6 conversations per year starting in kindergarten about their brain. So K through 2, you want to teach them about their brain and reward using brain-based praise. And then in grades 3 through 5, we can start teaching the risky behavior and literally 6 conversations 10 minutes per year. That's it. If we can get our school counselors to have those conversations with kids consistently, or teach parents how to have those conversations consistently, we're going to see a huge developmental effect over time.
Yes. I'm
And then, of course,
Oh, I was just thinking, we do like a parent newsletter. A lot of counselors do that every month. That's something I give my impact members, like a editable parent newsletter they can send out a different topic every month. And I'm thinking that's something you could put in there, one of these skills every month.
please do.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you check out knowyourneuro.org, or if you need a bite or something from me, I'd love to help you populate your newsletter section if you need
Yeah,
any.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask, you said the brain-based praise or brain-specific praise with the littles. Can you give an example of that?
Sure. I do a whole hour on brain-based praise, and it's a good webinar. And so I'd love to have, if you know school counselors who want me to do things like that, either in person or on a webinar, they can record it and use it over and over and over. I'm happy to do that. But what I do is I teach parents the executive functioning skills that grow in those two phases. It's actually in the first chapter of my book on brain development. And I want parents to memorize them. There's, like 12 skills. It's 13 skills. It's not hard to memorize them. But once you know what you're looking for in your child, then you can apply praise. And so let's just take the first one. Task initiation is an incredibly important executive functioning skill. But we have to learn that. We have to learn how to do it on our own. And so your parenting prompt could sound like, hey, I'd like you to remember to take out the trash on Tuesday. And if you do, then you'll be rewarded by blah 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 behavior on Wednesday, whatever that is. And then Tuesday comes, you don't say anything, no prompting, and when the child initiates taking out the trash, then you use brain-based praise and say, "Oh, dude, you took out the trash. I didn't even have to remind you. Nice. Okay, you definitely earned your reward for tomorrow." So what you're doing is you're not rewarding taking out the trash. You're rewarding task initiation and figuring out how to do that without being reminded, which is a critical adult skill. So switching the paradigm over to, oh, I need to reward executive functioning skills, not all these behaviors, but the skills that my kid needs to grow up and be a fully self-supporting adult.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I know. Like I said, my son's 4 and I always get his clothes for school, But the other day he just went in there and got them himself. And I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever.
It's the best thing ever. And Rachel, I want you to adopt this mantra. If they can, they should.
Oh,
If they can, they should. So now that your child can, you don't do that anymore.
right. That's good. I know, because then the next day I went and got him again. So I need to give it to him.
But see, what are you robbing your child of? Is task initiation, the ability to choose themselves, right? The skills that it takes to do that ahead of time. And so that to me, so please don't take this offensively, but I call that selfish parenting. We're parenting for ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to choose, we want to be on time, it's easier. All of those things are about us not growing and empowering our kids' neuro, well, I call it the NeuroWhereabouts. What stage
Yeah.
is your brain in? What skills can and can't do? And so we want to think about how to empower that little brain to be fully self-supporting.
I love that. If they can, they should. That is a great mantra. Thank you. Well, this
You
episode
got
is
it.
great, super helpful. Thank you for your time. Yeah, this has been excellent. I know you mentioned some resources and things that you offer. Can you please tell the listeners where to find you if they want to connect and access some of those things?
Definitely. Please check out knowyourneuro.org. It is my passion project. It's free online prevention, family empowerment, lots of good things on there, and I constantly add to it. You can find the NeuroWhereabouts guide in English and in Spanish, and the Know Your Neuro children's book series on Amazon, Dr. Crystal Collier. Just look up the author, Know Your Neuro, and you'll find that. But I also have links to the books from knowyourneuro.org, so you can see it there.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll put all the links in the show notes so the listeners can easily find them. So thank you.
Yay, thank you, Rachel.
I love this episode. It was so interesting and I learned so much.
Well, great. Let me know if I can help in the future on any specific topic. And I just want your school counselors to know that you're my tribe. I love what you do. Whatever I can do to help support you as a therapist who works with kids, I'm in.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.